Namaste. Welcome back. Our next lesson today for our Yamas, and this will conclude our Yamas series. Yamas obviously being the moral conduct, the first of the 8 limbs of yoga from the yoga systems of Patanjali, out of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Today we're going to talk about a Pradigraha, non-attachment, non-clinging, non-possessiveness, non-greed. How do we practice that not just on the mat, but in life? As a practitioner of yoga, someone who practices yoga, a yogi, anyone who practices a scientific technique for divine realization is a yogi. That's a direct quote from Yogananda in the autobiography of a yogi. Let's look at the word Pradigraha. Pradigraha means hoarding or collecting. So we add the A, just like we do in ahimsa, or himsa, it would be harming. Ahimsa is non-harming. Pradigraha is hoarding or collecting. Aparigraha would mean not hoarding or collecting. So that in front of words in Sanskrit, that's what that's denoting in these particular situations. I'm not a Sanskrit expert, but that's where it comes from. Okay. You want to be free from hoarding or greed. That is practicing a Pradigraha. The yogi feels that the collection or hoarding of things implies a lack of faith in God or their higher energy, or within themselves, really, to provide for their future. Okay, so think about that for a minute. You're implying that you don't have faith that what you really need will be provided for you. Okay. By observing a Pradigraha, the yogi really, he or she is going to make his or her life as simple as possible. And you want to train your mind not to feel the loss or lack of anything. Okay? You want to live simple. You don't want to be greedy, There's stories about that in all kinds of ancient scriptures and spiritual things. It's in the Bible too. There's all kinds of stories about that, and I could go on and on because this means a lot to me. I personally had taken the vows of ahimsa and satya and Pradigraha when I took my yogic vows years ago, because they meant so much to me. Because previously, before I found yoga, I didn't practice those things very well. Okay? So I try to simplify my life. How do we practice a Pradigraha on the mat? Well, you don't want to be greedy of, an instructor's time or a student's time. That kind of goes back into, being content and not stealing. Notice how, again, these are all flowing and tying into each other. But don't be greedy to yourself, or hoarding or collecting. I've got to have this. I've got to have more of that. You can't buy your way into, you know, being the perfect yogi, if you will. Also, in your asana practices, less is more. You don't have to learn every single asana. You know, you're kind of like, you're being greedy about that kind of stuff, and you're clinging to it. You've got that attachment to learning more and more and more and more. Let it come naturally. Less is more. You don't have to be possessive about things. So Pradigraha. Non-attachment leads to freedom. You learn to let that stuff go. And it's a weight that's lifted off of you. A couple other things. Again, you want to try to live as simple as possible, but you don't want to be, negligent to yourself or your family. You want to be able to have what you need. Setting limits, okay, going back into our yamas. The bottom line is that a yogi only, uses, takes or possesses what is necessary. And by doing so, you become free of desires. Think about that a little bit on your mat next time when you're recentering or when you're meditating at home. It's all about living, generously. Giving without expecting. Not expecting anything in return. You don't have to hoard stuff, and that's unhealthy. That's a condition. It's a mental condition. Maybe you know someone that has a problem with hoarding. Maybe you yourself had a problem or have a problem with hoarding or collecting. I know I've done it. It's something we want to try to free ourselves from by practicing Aparigraha. Applied to asanas and pranayama, this principle can help students approach their practice with an attitude of patience, with steadiness and ease, love and compassion. See, all that is more important than getting into the pose. Remember, it's how you go, not how far you go. There's always a modification for any asana. Props are encouraged and welcomed. Okay. This applies equally to your intention in giving an assist or guiding your own students. Maybe you're a teacher. And letting the asana naturally open up to them without forcing it, and this is something as teachers that we all need to be mindful of. Sometimes those teachers become attached to a certain preconception of what a student can or should be able to do in deepening an asana rather than just staying attuned to the student. This can result in pushing the students too far with verbal and or physical cues. Also, students are often attached to their own idea of how or how far to go, and may ask for even more intense adjustments in their body, or more intensity than their body is really ready for at that moment. Less is more. Less is more. That's how you can practice Aparigraha on your mat and in life. Non-attachment, non-clinging, non-possessiveness. Attachment leads to disappointment. Non-attachment leads to freedom. I hope you've enjoyed these short video series on the Yamas, the moral conducts. We'll be doing a little series on the Niyamas, or the religious observances, in our next short series of videos. I hope that you've enjoyed them all again, and with great love and great respect, I thank you so much for inviting me into your home. Enjoy the rest of your day. Namaste.